Okay, after high school, then what was on the horizon for John?
I went 2 years to Middle Tennessee State University because I had two good friends, David Messamore and Bob Schubert, who went over there. So they took me over there one time to see the campus, and I just decided this is a place where I want to go to school and stay there 2 years, and then would transfer to UT after those 2 years.
Okay.
But,
So after UT, is that when you went into the Navy?
Actually, the story was on that they needed I was going into the Navy in December, and they needed a world history teacher at the high school. And they didn't have one, and my dad asked me, he said, would you do that for us? Do you leave in December? And I said, yeah, I'll do that. And then...
December of what year?
1970.
Okay.
And then I left, and I think it was Kyle Burnett that just got out of college that took my place. And I would come back in about 5 years and get that job back.
Tell me about your Navy career. What it did entail.
I was in an air squadron. It's called VA-84, and it's still alive and well. We had A-7 aircrafts. And I got to go to a naval school in Memphis in aviation maintenance engineering, and I would keep the library for the A-7 aircraft. And we were assigned to the USS Forrestal. And we traveled, went on a Mediterranean cruise, and every chance I would get off that boat and take these historical tours, and they would have them on every stop. Mm-hmm. And that would really change my life too, to see these places.
You wanted more?
Yeah, that's the first time I'd ever been out of the country, and got a chance to see some of these places that I'd always heard about.
What lesson did the Navy teach you about life?
I think it taught discipline, and I think it taught a love for your country. That here you were serving your country, and I mean, a lot of times I was in Jacksonville, Florida, and I would fly to Knoxville, and we had to fly a military standby, and you had to wear your uniform, and just people who would show respect for you, and the military, I think, is a pretty good thing. I think a lot of people need to serve in that, and it gives you a whole new perspective about your country.
So what years were you in the Navy?
I went in 70 and got out in 72. I was in the Naval Reserves.
Okay.
They let me out in 72.
So after that, then you started full-time teaching?
I started teaching at Eaton Elementary School, started teaching science. And that's where I started after. Didn't know a whole lot about the subject, but like the students, I'd come home and do my homework every night.
So that was grades 1 through 8 at that time, I guess.
Yeah. Larry Duff, Mr. Larry Duff was the principal over there, and he was a wonderful man to work for. I've worked for some great principals, and I really have been very fortunate in doing that.
So you were only 1 year at Eaton?
I stayed 1 year at Eaton, yeah.
And then you got to come home.
And made friends that I still have to this day. Yeah.
So your dad was principal at that time?
Yeah. No, my dad was the principal when I was at Eaton. He was not principal when I
so he had already passed away.
Yeah, he passed away. Yeah.
So who would have been the principal?
James Gibson.
Oh yeah, yeah. How many years were you at the high school?
I was there about, out there about 1974 through 2008.
2008.
Or 2009, I guess it was when I left it. So a lot of changes.
What were some of the memories at Loudon High School?
Oh my goodness. Just had a lot of people that were on the faculty that were very good friends, and the kids were wonderful. And if I had my life to do all over again, I don't think I'd change a thing about that.
That's great.
It was a great experience.
And you probably made friends for life with a lot of people.
Sure did. Sure did.
you were elected to the Tennessee Teacher Hall of Fame in
2008.
2008.
Yeah.
So how did this come about?
My principal, John Bartlett, just said, I have nominated you for the Tennessee Teachers Hall of Fame. And I didn't think a whole lot about it. And then it wasn't long after that some kind of a committee came over there to sit in one of my classes. And we were playing Jeopardy that day, actually. And I'd had my Jeopardy game down to a perfection, and I guess it impressed them. And
Yeah.
I found out that I was one of the, I guess, 6 or 8 people that were invited into the Hall of Fame that year.
I mean, that's a great honor.
We went over to Nashville for a big banquet and got inducted in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you today, looking back? What does it mean to
be truthful,
included?
I don't think a whole lot about that. I've got a big trophy, and I've got a video of the proceedings that I've never looked at.
Mhm.
And I'll be the first to tell you, there's a lot of teachers in this county that were better teachers than I was. And it's an honor to be in the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
But, it doesn't cross my mind a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Well, what are the characteristics that you believe that make a good teacher?
I tell you what, my dad told me one time, and he'd been in that business a lot longer than I was, and he said, you find a way to pass every one of those students. And said, if you fail them, they may, who knows where they may go, but if you pass those kids, you find a way to pass them, and they get a diploma, they can be very constructive members of society. Mm-hmm. And I kind of took that philosophy with me, and I've seen that over and over and over. People in this town who have made wonderful contributions, they weren't very good students in high school.
Right.
And there's no need to beat them down and flunk them.
Right.
Find a way to pass them and get them the diploma and get them out of there.
What did you enjoy about teaching the most?
I enjoyed the materials, what I enjoyed, and I taught world history and American history, and I made it my goal. Every place that I teach about, I'm going to visit there. I want to walk that land. Sure. And put my hands on these buildings and see this for myself. Mm-hmm. And same way with American history. You can't really tell about somebody about the Battle of Gettysburg until you walk that land. Right. and feel that dirt underneath your feet or touch those rock walls. Mm-hmm. Then it kind of sets in on you.
What was the greatest challenge for you in teaching the profession?
I guess I don't think there were any real challenges. I enjoyed what I did, and it was not anything I dreaded. I mean, I just looked forward to getting up and going to work every day. I enjoyed it that much. And then the guys that I taught with, all wonderful people, and everybody liked everybody, and everybody got along with everybody.
And that group at Loudon High School in the social studies department, I mean, y'all were together for a long time, weren't you?
Yeah, we sure were.
Jerry Foster, Bill Thompson, you, and David Clinton was there at one time.
Yeah, and then right across the hallway, you had Brian Nichols, and you had Kevin Raper, and I mean, we were buddies at school, and we were buddies out of school.
Yeah,
we hung around out of school. I mean, they were our best friends.
Sure. You also have a moniker of the Loudon High School sports historian. Which football team in your witnessing, which football team do you think was the best in your lifetime?
I don't know. The 3 state championship teams were awfully good, and then that team that Dale Collis and Bruce Wilkerson played on was awfully good, and I can't tell you which one was the best. I probably enjoyed watching that 1969 team more than any of them. bunch of little boys, but oh, they could play football.
Fast, weren't
Yeah,
they?
they were fast, and
You had these, what,
just
140
like a
pound
well-oiled
guards.
machine, yeah.
And Dickie Blankenship and Mike Scrimshaw,
Yeah.
they probably weighed 140.
Yeah.
All right, as far as players, who was the best among the best players you can go over?
I would say you get those Hall of Fame players. You got Gordo Watson and Jake Lane, and but I tell you this: I've often said this, if there is a one player that I had to be in an Army foxhole with, I would choose Dale Collis.
Is that right?
Because that kid, he was tough as nails, and he, to me, he would just epitomize what a football player needs to be.
Still a good guy, too.
Yeah, a good guy, and turned out to be an excellent husband and father.
Yeah.
And I knew he would be.
How about basketball players? Who were some of your favorite basketball players?
Stephen Bettis. Stephen, when I had him first in class, was a very immature kid, but he grew up to be a very good basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
And Morris Wilson was one that I'll remember. And of course, Mike Messamore was awfully good.
Mm-hmm.
There's been so many. And two guys, too, that I've left out that I should say this, Mac Petty and Hugh Watson. And both those guys were.
Tell us about Coach Petty.
Coach Petty came from the University of Tennessee and was hired down there, and he really knew his basketball. And I guess he's probably maybe the smartest basketball player Coach Loudon ever had up to that time. That guy really knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And he could really teach the game. And those kids that he taught, they still converse with him to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
And then he later coached college ball, right?
Yeah, he went to Swanee and then to Wabash College in Indiana, where he retired, I think.
And Coach Watson, what do you remember about Coach Watson?
He turned out to be one of my very dear friends, and I remember that he was a country boy, pure and simple. And I remember my dad hired him, and he used to tell this story that the first day that Hugh was to report to work, he called in and said, I can't be there today. He said, can you give me a couple of extra days? And Dad said, yeah, I guess we can. I said, what's the matter? And he said, I got sprayed by a skunk. So that didn't start out too good, but oh man, he was a great, still is a great friend and a great basketball coach.
One person that in Loudon sports that's a Hall of Famer is Bruce Lawson.
Yeah.
Tell me about your memories of Bruce.
Bruce, when we lived down in town, was my next door neighbor, and he was just a kid that he loved football, and he loved Loudon High School. And if I ever write a book about Loudon High School football, I will dedicate it to Bruce, because nobody ever loved the Loudon Redskins more than Bruce Lawson.
He went to how many games in a row? The streak started sometime in the 60s, didn't it?
Yeah, over like for 20-some straight years, I don't think he ever missed a game.
And he had to have some sort of surgery, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's what ended his streak.
Yeah.
One thing I failed to ask earlier, and we'll hit it in here, was when your farm was bought by the TVA. What are your thoughts and reactions to that?
I look back on that, and I remember when the appraisers were coming to look at that land. My uncle and I, we bush hogged those fields. We had that land looking as beautiful as any farm you can imagine. And there were two of those appraisers, and my uncle Ray and I walked with them over that land. And they said, we have never seen anything like this. And these river bottom lands, as far as you can see, just all mowed down and beautiful. And we were really feeling good about that. And then when the appraising came in, that land, they offered us like $198 an acre for that land.
What year was that? You remember?
It's been about 1974 or 5, somewhere
Okay.
in that vicinity. And my goodness, I said, where can you buy land for $198 an acre?
You couldn't.
And this is prime river bottom land.
Yeah. And you couldn't then either.
No. And, you know, I had mixed views about that, I don't know, there was over 400 acres in our farm out there, but, I don't know, sometimes I think it was a blessing in disguise, and sometimes I think it was just highway robbery, just however you look at it.
Combination.
Yeah.
Who had the greatest influence on you in your life?
I'd say my dad.
And why is that?
He, he was just somebody that you would try hard to please, and you would not want him to be disappointed in you. And he did not expect perfection, and I was never a good math student, and many a time he told me, just do the best you can, that's all you can do. Just do your best.
So what was his greatest characteristic, you think?
I think I never heard the man use vulgar language. I never saw him lose his temper. And I saw people around him lose their temper, but I never saw him lose his temper. And his word was his bond. If he told you something, that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And you don't see many like him. And I'll tell you this, he was the principal out there 60-some years ago, and I would say once a week in my life, somebody will come up and tell me, let me tell you about your dad, what your dad did. These are his ex-students. And I told my son, Will, I said, I don't think they're going to be telling stories about the principal here 50 years or 60 years down the road like they did your grandfather.
Well, it's almost a different role now, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you had principals who lived in that town and they were there for a long time.
And he dearly loved Loudon High School. He dearly loved it. Yeah. He loved his job.
Well, John, what do you want your legacy to be?
Just someone who enjoyed teaching and tried to make the history department out there a little bit better place. And someone who loved Loudon High School and wanted the best for it.
And you enjoy teaching Sunday school also, right?
Yeah, I do.
What's the best part about teaching Sunday school?
I think what I try to do in my Sunday school classes, I want to tell you at least one thing that you may not know. At least I can do that.
Yeah.
And to bring these people hopefully closer to who they really are and to where we're not all going to live here forever. There's another world we're going to go into, and hopefully we'll be going to the place with our Lord and Savior.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, John, for your time.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Did you get what you wanted?